How do we read the big peace message from the RSS Chief Mohan Bhagwat on rising Mandir Masjid disputes? The RSS chief has frowned upon what he calls new attempts to rake up disharmony. How do we decode this message of harmony? And can the Sangh Parivar control its far right base? I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo Story. On the program today, we will be looking at the very interesting speech made by Mohan Bhagwat, a speech in which Mohan Bhagwat, the RSS chief, says it is unacceptable to stir up new Mandir Masjid disputes. In fact, Mohan Bhagwat went so far as to say raking up such disputes will not make anyone the leader of Hindus. Mohan Bhagwat referenced the Ram Mandir in Ayodhya, but said that having won this mandir, which is sacred to millions of devotees, new issues should not be raked up. Remember, it was Mohan Bhagwat who in the past had warned against going looking for shivlings under every mosque. The question is, how do we read this statement? The timing of it? How do we understand it in the larger context of where the RSS BJP equation is, especially after the wins in Haryana and Maharashtra, wins that most people believe would not have been possible without the RSS? And can the Sangh Parivar control those sections of its base that are not happy with Mohan Bhagwat's statements? Joining me now is veteran journalist and author Nilanjan Mukhopadhyay. Mr. Mukhopadhyay has, of course, spent a lifetime reporting on and studying the Sangh Parivar, and is also the author of a biography on the Prime Minister. Nilanjan, it's always a pleasure to talk to you and learn from you. How do you read this message? Mohan Bhagwat has said this before. पहले भी कह चुके हैं, don't go looking for shivlings under every mosque. I think he's never really given a call for this sort of open-ended kind of petition bazi that we've seen in Ajmer, that we've seen in Sambal. And now the Supreme Court has also put at least a temporary halt to it while they look at the Places of Worship Act. How do we read Mohan Bhagwat's statements? What did you think? Were you surprised?
Well, first of all, Barkha, thank you very much for getting me on your show. It's always a pleasure to talk to you in a very relaxed manner, and actually being able to spend some more time than just short sound bites. The first thing, of course, you said that this is not the first time Mr. Mohan Bhagwat has said something like that. So, given the fact that none of us are actually great admirers of the RSS, at least I am not, I would actually say that Mr. Mohan Bhagwat has talked a lot, but he's not walked it. He has said in the past also that people should not use hate, should not be using hate speech. Last year, on the most important speech, that is 2023, the Dussehra speech, which was actually very important because it was the last Dussehra speech before the Lok Sabha elections of 2024. So everybody was very keenly looking at it with a microscope, that what does he say? So he said that no inflammatory, speeches, nothing like that. Don't inflame passions in the country. But eventually, what happened? Passions were inflamed. They were inflamed by the Ram Mandir, the huge inaugural tamasha of a temple which was not yet complete. It's still not complete. Possibly June 2025, I hear, is the last, is the latest deadline for that temple. Then we had Mr. Modi upping the antenna by that speech in Rajasthan, in Banswara in Rajasthan, where he said that the Congress is going to steal away your wealth and then distribute it to those people who have more children. Now that was exactly the same of what he had used. You had reported that riots in Gujarat very extensively. I remember I did not report on that for various professional phase that I was in. But I do remember all of you actually reporting on that very famous speech which he made in Becharji, which was a pilgrim town, where he said that I am now shutting down refugee camps and these people are saying that you're not doing anything good. So what do you expect me to do? So do something good for the country or set up baby producing factories. So combine the fact, that the RSS has run a decades old campaign that, there is an uh, an Islamist conspiracy to reduce the Hindus into a minority in the country. So it's the same kind of a thing which was inflamed by Mr. Modi. So he could not even Mr. Bhagwat could not advise Mr. Modi to what kind of moderation or what kind of hard line should he take.
But can I interrupt you there? Can I interrupt you there only to make a counter argument? And the counter
Yeah.
argument would be that Mohan Bhagwat's own speeches, even if you look at them after the Lok Sabha, how he said that the opposition cannot be treated as a personal enemy. He spoke about, he warned against, without taking any names, arrogance. The RSS has a Muslim wing, and the RSS leader Indresh takes great pride in working, on that wing of the RSS. And you've had some of the most prominent Muslim intellectuals, leaders of the community, Najib Jung, S.Y. Qureshi, General Zamiruddin Shah, Shahid Siddiqui, who were among those who, I don't know if you remember this, who went to meet with the RSS chief, Mohan Bhagwat, right? And many of them have welcomed his statement that has come in the last few hours. Why are you so cynical? Why do you not welcome it?
Because there is a history of them wanting to ride the tiger. I'm talking about, the fact that, right from the 1980s, they have always thought, that it's very easy to ride a tiger and dismount at will. Now, while you can get up on a tiger and actually raise up passions, but you cannot dismount at will. So one of the worries of the RSS is that if they want to tone down their campaign, it might be hijacked by extreme fringes, though it's an open question that how much is extreme and how much is mainstream. What is the difference between them? But yes, there are elements, who may be inclined to become more radical than what the RSS or the BJP is. I do know from my personal experience, in a couple of years back, I think it was in 2022, I was there at Gwalior, where I was just generally trying to go and check up with some of my old Hindu Mahasabha contacts and look at that Godse temple which they had put up, which was pulled down by the Shivraj Singh Chauhan government after he assumed office. So, at that point, there were large number of people, the Hindu Mahasabha, this was in Gwalior, where there is a
but the
history
RSS and the RSS and the Hindu Mahasabha, which you know better than me, don't like each other.
No, they don't like each other, but they come from the same pool. Yes, there were differences. What I'm saying is that a lot of the Hindu Mahasabha people were very critical of Mr. Modi. Because according to them, they said Mr. Modi to compromise करके चलते. अच्छा नेता तो योगी आदित्यनाथ है. जो बोलना है बोलता है. So there is a constituency within the right wing, which is a bit critical of the RSS of the BJP for walking the middle path at times. I'm not saying that they do it all the time. This is the contradiction that Mr. Modi has to balance between the necessity of a domestic constituency and becoming acceptable in the global constituency. Let us not forget the fact that
sorry, no, I was just going to say that as we speak today, the Prime Minister is on a trip to Kuwait. The Prime Minister has managed to build up a very popular set of rapport. We can have a separate discussion. Is this because of the primacy of India? But he's invested a lot of personal capital in building relationships in the Gulf countries, in the Muslim countries, outside, in terms of a foreign policy push, right? That's one point of observation I wanted to make. But you said that the Hindu Mahasabha or certain constituencies within the Sangh Parivar or the right wing, as it's loosely called, for them, you're saying Modi is not right wing enough.
Yes. Yeah, that is what was conveyed to me, and that is what we keep on hearing, on various occasions. There are various people, even during the peak of the Ram Janmabhoomi agitation, there were people who were more radical than what the RSS and the Vishwa Hindu Parishad was, There were people, like even Mahant Adityanath at one point was this, the preceding, Pithadesh of Gorakhdham, where from where Yogi Adityanath comes. So there were people, there were sections, at one point, even Bajrang Dal was more radical than the Vishwa Hindu Parishad. Vinay Katiyar, subsequently he toned down. There were people in the 90s, not in the 80s so much. Even there were leaders of the Vishwa Hindu Parishad, that Praveen Togadia, for instance, who was always more radical of what Mr. Modi as the Chief Minister of Gujarat was, and that is what eventually happened. The two fell out for a variety of reasons, some personal, some also ideological issues were involved at that point. So there is obviously that who is the more devout or the more politically committed Hindu. There is a battle for that. So, given that Mr. Modi or Mr. Bhagwat really cannot give up the hard line also, but there is also a necessity to exercise restraint at times. My criticism of Mr. Mohan Bhagwat is that I can actually dig out many more such speeches, which he's made now, which obviously leaves with people like the Muslim intellectuals who have interacted with him with no choice but to welcome it, because they live in their best hope is that somehow the other the RSS and the BJP come into towards the center and give some kind of a respectable space to the Muslims, which is not denied at the moment. So there have been many occasions where Mr. Bhagwat or various other people of the RSS have spoken about restraint, have spoken about inclusivity, but when it comes to actually making a statement of getting something done when it is happening, you might remember in 2021 there was that Sant who is somewhere, I'm forgetting the name, who has also an office. His dham is somewhere in Ghaziabad, Meerut, again in the news recently. He gave a series of hate speeches here, then went to Jabalpur, but nothing came out. No cases were ever filed against him. At that point, also Mr. Bhagwat had spoken against hate speech. So it needs to be followed up. He said a lot of things in Vigyan Bhavan in 2018, but a lot of things have been missing in terms of action.
Yeah. So you would
That is
want
my
him to do more
yes,
to
walk
follow
the
up on
talk.
his words.
Yeah, walk
But
the
but
talk.
but let me make a practical observation. You see, ideology is one thing, but anyone who runs government in a country as such as ours uh, is 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 moderated by the very process of governance, right? That is what a country as diverse as India does. Secondly, if you're going to, if one of your big promises is the economic growth of India, economic growth does not do well if there is social strife. So what
Right.
happened in Sambhal, for example, that is not good for the record of Yogi Adityanath, who otherwise wants to claim that he has governed with, with law and order being much better than it was. That's not good for Modi's own claim that, look, there were more Muslims, anti-Muslim riots on the Congress watch than there have been on our watch. So strife does not suit either the RSS or the BJP, notwithstanding what variations of ideology may be. Would
For
you
one thing,
agree?
you referred the name of Yogi Adityanath. Now, you know the background of the relationship between Mr. Modi and Yogi Adityanath. Right from
Not a
2000,
great, not a great
not a very
relationship,
good
but
relationship.
nor is the relationship between the RSS and Yogi Adityanath. Yogi Adityanath is not an RSS leader.
Yes, but if you remember that in October when they had the executive meeting in Mathura, right after that in the press conference which Dattatreya Hosabale addressed, he did say that the RSS is backing Yogi Adityanath and said, that the statement that he had made that batenge to katenge is absolutely an apt one. And eventually that is the slogan, which was modified a bit in Maharashtra, ek hai to safe hai. And that is how everybody used it. And that majoritarian slogan to a great extent played a role in the victory of the BJP, besides, of course, the RSS network, And so the RSS is also, is also a political organization, despite the saying, that we are a cultural organization. I don't think that they are at all a cultural organization. So they have their internal politics also. So Yogi Adityanath becomes a prop to Mr. Modi. In 2017, Mr. Modi did not want Yogi Adityanath. His choice for someone else, But it eventually happened because till that point, the RSS had some kind of a voice within the Parivar. Thereafter, it actually became very muted till they suddenly found the voice, in the middle of 2024 with a very weak participation in the Lok Sabha elections. I'm saying weak because there were some parts of India where the RSS network was involved, but in most of the places where the BJP lost seats, slipped down, were those where the RSS did not step out to campaign. So I think the RSS has
But since
conveyed,
then,
since then it has
yeah,
conveyed
sorry.
that what its absence can do to a BJP campaign, that it makes a difference between majority and sub-majority tally. That is what the RSS has done.
Yeah, I
So
think that's a good point that the RSS, but if the RSS has reminded the BJP, that how much the BJP needs the RSS, despite what JP Nadda, said and created a storm over, the BJP has also reminded the RSS, maybe not overtly, that Mr. Modi is presently the RSS's best bet. Hence, if I were to zoom out from this entire conversation, how do you look at the timing of what has happened? Of how do we read who Mr. Bhagwat is aiming this message at when he makes this comment as he has?
I got a bit confused when I was looking at Mr. Bhagwat's point. The problem is that, of course, he made the speech in Marathi. So, and I don't understand Marathi very well. A large number of us journalists, barring a few, non-Marathi speaking people who have actually very consciously learned Marathi, were able to listen to the entire speech and get the gist of it. But reading its and bits in various newspapers, various agency reports, and things, what comes across is that Mr. Bhagwat is not just spoken what all the headlines are focusing on. He makes this statement, which I really could not fathom that who is it directed at. He said that ek Ram Mandir bana dena. I'm just saying in Hindi, as it because that's what I read in a Hindi paper, that ek Ram Mandir bana dene se Hinduon ka neta nahi ho sakta. Now, who has made the Ram Mandir? Right? Let me ask. So obviously the answer would be that it's an agitation which started in the 80s, but it was just a second. It was kind of, nothing was really happening till about 2018, at which point, the Supreme Court was speeded up. What were the methods? We really do not know. We can only speculate whether Mr. Modi had a role in it or not. And then came 2019, and after July, August, the Supreme Court started hearing it on a regular basis, daily basis, and came out with the verdict in November 2019. Thereafter, it was Mr. Modi all the way, right from the Bhumi Pujan to the inaugural on the 22nd of January this year. So, is Mr. Bhagwat once again, it's a kind of speech after June. I remember you and I, had a long conversation, on Mr. Bhagwat's speeches, So, is this also some kind of a thing, which Mr. Bhagwat could not stop himself from making a dig without taking the name? Very confusing thing. So there are several layers within the speech which has to be, I think, understood once again by being able to go through the whole text.
Yeah, I was just going to say that my interpretation of that reference to Ram Mandir and you don't become a leader of Hindus was a little different. But again, I've also read it in translation. And what he seemed to be saying, to my understanding, was that by raking up all these new issues, don't try and position yourself as a leader of Hindus. That Ram Mandir was a legitimate movement, but ye jo aap abhi kar rahe hain, this will not make you a kind of new leader of the Hindus. I had a somewhat different interpretation.
Yeah, I'm sure, that the more we read, we will also be able to understand, the context of by listening to what he says in these few sentences just before that. It's very important, we will just the other day we were talking about Mr. Amit Shah's those 11 seconds, if can it be completely disconnected with what he said prior to that and after that, so the matter changes.
Exactly.
So I think, but I don't think, that it would be, I think it would be a bit naive on our part if we say that Mr. Bhagwat has suddenly toned down because the Supreme Court has said so, and he does not want any of the people
No,
to
I
say
genuinely think that let me offer a very theory without being the expert that you are. I genuinely think that social strife is not good for the RSS, for Prime Minister, for the UP Chief Minister. It is not good. Even BJP supporters have said that those who are doing this, Zafar Sareshwala, who's used to be a Modi critic, is now a Modi fan. One of the comments he made to me was, "ये जो कर रहे हैं ना, ये RSS की भी दुश्मन है, ये मोदी की भी दुश्मन है." So there is a different view also about the more extreme elements of the Sangh that can no longer be directed or steered or fully controlled.
Yes, that what Sareshwala told you. It's been his position for a long time because he's been with the system right from 2014. Or even before that. For that matter.
Yeah,
After
yeah.
the protest which he led against Mr. Modi in England. During one of his early trips as chief minister. After that, he's been completely on Mr. Modi's side, and I also interacted with him quite a bit. In the process of
Hmm.
writing the biography of Mr. Modi, and even after that. That's his viewpoint. Now, yes, economics, progress, development, all takes a beating if there is social strife. But then, who is the one
Yeah.
who in Sambal, for instance, who actually catalyzed, triggered the social strife? Was there any reason
Hmm.
for the local court to do it so hastily? The moment the application comes, as if that they were waiting, just get it, and immediately passed order. And even the Archaeological Survey of India were there, and they immediately started conducting a survey. Even before the Muslim
Hmm.
community which was there in that area, could realize what was happening, the first survey was over. It's only when they came back for the second time without making any announcement and without adequate assessment of the security situation that what might happen. So I would say that they are playing with fire even after that in Sambal. After the survey was stopped, the Supreme Court gave the judgment. You still have a fairly hyperactive local administration. The SDM has been very
Hmm.
active, going around, colonies and digging out, old locked up, or I do not know unless one goes there and see what is the
Hmm.
history of it. We have all covered communal riots through the 1980s. That was a decade when religion really came into politics. But very frankly, I had not. We talk about Moradabad riots of 1980 as really the starting point. Even M.J. Akbar's famous book, the riot after riot, talks very extensively about that. Uh, you know, D.R. Goel and
Hmm.
Mr. Engineer, they all talked about the
Hmm.
Moradabad riot as really the beginning, and thereafter many things happened. But now suddenly we are listening that there was a very bad riot in 1978 in Sambal, after which the Hindus completely left the town. Uh, Somehow or the other, maybe it is our ignorance. Maybe we did not dig sufficiently when we were going around Western UP through the 80s and early 90s, trying to figure out the communal history of that region. Even I went to Sambal also, but I did not hear anything about widespread riots in Sambal and the fact that the Hindus all fled that, and a large number of temples were actually occupied by the Muslim communities and converted into their homes.
Hmm.
But they are finding these evidences. And these are being found even though the Supreme Court has said that there should not be any surveys. There, the SDM's reply would be that these are not surveys. We are just going and seeing, checking for who has illegal electricity connections, and we are discovering these temples, and that is why we are
Hmm.
cleaning it up. Now, stealing electricity is something one of the most common thing everywhere, right from Delhi to large parts of North India. I do not know so much about South India, but and Western India, but North India is stealing electricity, getting these lines, consuming electricity without paying bills is one of the most common thing, be it in urban centers, be it in rural centers. So it is not a big
Hmm.
crime, but I'll question, what is the timing of this, so you want to keep the flame alive, keep on blowing wind into it.
Right. Finally, we've been talking about this, that the BJP's next big decision is who will be its president. And then that will give us some clue in terms of who's holding the sort of reins of power. Is there a leveraging that has changed between the BJP and the RSS? How are you reading the current equation after the wins in Haryana and Maharashtra, both states where the elections were hyper-localized? Both states where the opposition was decimated, but both states where the prime minister did not necessarily become the face of the campaign.
No, I think that whoever becomes the president of the BJP now, there will have to be some kind of an agreement between the BJP and the RSS leadership. In the past two occasions, the RSS was barely consulted. When Mr. Amit Shah became the president, that was almost kind of decided very hastily within the BJP itself. And also JP Nadda becoming the president, taking over from Amit Shah after he became the Union Home Minister. But this time, I think, especially after the RSS, what all has happened since the 4th of June, various statements, the fact we cannot ignore the fact that even after saying that we do not really need the RSS, this was that famous Indian Express interview to the Indian Express, which JP Nadda gave in the third week of May, third or maybe the second week of May, he gave that interview that we really do not need the RSS any longer. There was a time when we were incompetent, insufficient. That is required. That is what he said. But then after that, he did go along with one of his general secretaries to BL Santosh, the organizing secretary, went to Palghat in Kerala, for the Samanvay Samiti Baitak, which is a kind of coordination committee where the RSS top brass listens to reports from all of the affiliated, about 40 odd affiliated organizations they report. So the BJP also reported and offered reasons as to why they did not get a majority, their reasons, their understanding of the situation. After that, the RSS had its national executive meeting, to which I referred earlier, and then Dattatreya Hosabole made it very clear for the first time that yes, we took note of what Mr. Nadda said, and we know how to sort these things out. If there is an issue, we have sorted it out. So how has it been sorted out? Details will not come out, but the very fact that the RSS went back to election campaign in Haryana as well as in Maharashtra, they also were there in Jharkhand. It didn't work out because of other mistakes which BJP made, alienating the tribal constituency. That's different. So I think that the RSS, to put it very simply, RSS ka tatkal aajkal palla thoda bhari hai. The RSS is also one last point, very important. The RSS leadership never looks at its tenure, their tenure. Mohan Bhagwat is not looking for how he will be evaluated as a sarsanchari. He is looking far ahead. He has a long-term vision, which none of the BJP leaders would have, especially Mr. Modi. He would essentially be looking at his tenure. Yes, he talks about 2047. Yes, he wants a place in history of India as one of the tallest leaders, maybe even taller than Sardar Patel and Jawaharlal Nehru. But I would still say that the RSS has a longer vision than what Mr. Modi or any other BJP leader would have.
Very interesting. One thing is, the student of politics, the RSS and the BJP are endlessly fascinating because there's so many protagonists, so many competing sort of personas, and there's also no unanimity, I think, on ideology. The roots may be similar, but how far you go, how you calibrate, can you of India, whose interests are at play. It is endlessly fascinating. Thank you so much, Nilanjan Mukhopadhyay. Always a pleasure. And as they say, watch this space. So we'll have you back soon. Thank you and take care.
Thank you, Barkha.
Thank you.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo's Story and support independent, robust journalism.